For the very first time, a person of color has been nominated to the Supreme Court of Canada. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau announced Ontario Court of Appeal Judge Mahmud Jamal will fill the seat left empty by Rosalie Abella's retirement.
Jamal is a longtime litigator who was born in Kenya and raised in England before finishing high school in Edmonton. He's taught constitutional law at McGill University, as well as administrative law at Osgoode Hall Law School. Joining us tonight to speak about the significance of this appointment is Fareed Khan, the founder of Canadians United Against Hate. Mr. Khan, I know you're pleased with this news. Just can you put into perspective how significant this is?
Well, it's hugely significant. First of all, we have someone who is a person of color and who a lot of Canadians will see themselves in sitting on the Supreme Court. In addition, he's the first Muslim to be appointed to the Supreme Court. So the Muslim community, after the bad news and the tragedy of what happened in London, is latching onto this as something very positive.
And some would consider this an example of how to dismantle systemic racism.
Definitely. The Supreme Court, the House of Commons, and the Senate are the three most visible federal institutions in the land. And while there have been efforts to try and diversify the Senate through appointments and the House of Commons through nominating candidates of color, that hasn't been the case. And a lot of the cases that go before the Supreme Court tend to be human rights cases. And so it's important for the people who do stand before the Supreme Court to at least try and see themselves in some manner reflected in the bench. And this is going to be the first step in hopefully having a much more diverse Supreme Court.
And he has sort of personal diversity as well, doesn't he? I mean, he talks about being raised in school as a Christian, reciting the Lord's Prayer, but then observing the values of the Church of England, at home as a Muslim, reading the Quran and Arabic prayers, and also experiencing discrimination for the color of his skin. I mean, he just has so many interesting and diverse facets to him here that he seems like the sort of, five-star candidate.
Oh, definitely. I think that personal experiences of judges appointed to the bench really feed how they address issues of law. And of course, given that experience, given the fact that he's an immigrant, that he's a person of color, he's a Muslim, he himself talks about experiencing racism because of the color of his skin and because of his faith. I think that's hugely important. And we need to have more appointments to not just the Supreme Court, but federal bodies to reflect the diversity of this country. One of the recommendations we made to the federal government in our 18 recommendations was that all federal institutions, crown corporations, agencies be reflect the diversity of Canada in the appointments of their boards of directors. Now, the Supreme Court is one of the highest sort of boards in the land, and I'm hoping that this is a signal that we're going to see similar change in other federal agencies and institutions.
And Mr. Khan, you referenced the London attack. The last time we had you on CP24 tonight, we talked about hate crimes and the rise of hate crimes. So what does this nomination mean for Muslim communities across this country?
Well, I think obviously the Muslim community and Canadians at large, felt the emotion of that tragedy in London a couple of weeks ago. And I think that what's going to happen with this appointment is there's going to be a positive reaction among Muslims that, well, maybe we can be happy about something changing. Because once we start seeing diversity on our bodies, federal bodies, federal agencies, and provincial, municipal, once we start seeing that the diversity that Canada is in those institutions, then people at large, Canadians at large, start seeing themselves in those institutions. They have greater confidence in what those institutions do. So
we're just losing our signal here. Oh, I'm sorry for the technical difficulty there, but we just ran out of time as well. That was Fareed Khan with Canadians United Against Hate, joining us for a more positive story.